So this is how it all comes crashing down. Not with a rule change, not with an official statement, but with a single hit and a number that sent shockwaves through an entire league. Jacy Sheldon's contact with Caitlin Clark in the final moments of a game wasn't just another play in a physical season. It was a moment the house of cards the WNBA built finally collapsed. On the surface, it looked routine, two players making a standard basketball move. But what followed, that wasn't routine. That was seismic. The injury, the fallout, the tears, the silence, and then the number 48%, a drop so steep it didn't just rattle resellers. It exposed the WNBA's most guarded secret. Everything rides on Caitlin Clark. Let's rewind. July 15th, 2025. The Indiana Fever versus the Connecticut Sun, a matchup that's quickly turned into a war zone for one reason. Caitlin Clark is a target. Throughout the game, the contact was relentless. Pushes, grabs, shoulder checks. You'd think it was playoff basketball from the level of intensity, but the truth was darker. The Sun came in with a plan, and that plan rough up the face of the league. But what no one could have predicted was that this time it would work. Late in the fourth quarter, with the Fever up and the game nearly sealed, Sheldon made contact. Clark jolted. Her hand immediately went to her groin, and then everything stopped. What followed next was something no fan, no analyst, no WNBA executive was ready for. Caitlin Clark, the unshakable rookie, the media juggernaut who's taken elbows, slaps, and smack talk all season long, was in visible, undeniable pain. She tried to shake it off. Of course, that's what she does. It's what she's always done. But this wasn't a bruise. This was something deeper. She hobbled, she clutched, she slowed. And then, for the first time since her national championship loss, Caitlin Clark cried on the court. And that, more than anything, told you something was horribly wrong. This wasn't a player faking it for the cameras. This was raw, real, gut-wrenching. She walked toward the baseline, away from the cameras, from the play, from the game, but the cameras followed. And so did millions of fans watching live. She leaned against the base of the hoop, head down, hiding her face, but there was no hiding it. The WNBA's biggest star had broken, not because she wasn't tough enough, but because no one had stepped in. No teammate, no referee, no commissioner. And now it was too late. The public breakdown was a result of months of mounting pressure. A rookie season unlike any other. An onslaught of media obligations, physical assaults disguised as defense, and the crushing weight of being the WNBA savior. Every time she stepped on the court, she carried more than just a basketball. She carried a league. And that kind of pressure doesn't show up in stat sheets. It shows up in moments like this, when the pain is too much, the support too little, and the silence from the league absolutely deafening. And then the hammer dropped. Less than 24 hours after the injury, it was official. Caitlin Clark would miss both the All-Star game and the three-point contest. The league's biggest weekend was suddenly without its biggest name. The face of the event, the one with 1.3 million fan votes, a record-breaking number, was out. There were no backup plans, no contingency stars, no second act, just a massive void the WNBA couldn't fill. The news didn't come from a team statement or a league presser. It came straight to the media, the kind of delivery reserved for moments that can't be spun or sanitized. But the real shock wasn't the announcement. It was the immediate fallout. Because as soon as the news hit the airwaves, the invisible hand of the market moved, and it moved fast. Ticket prices for the All-Star game nosedived, not by a few bucks, not by 10%, but by 48%, nearly half. Gone, overnight. That's not just a drop, that's a scream. A message louder than any tweet or press conference could deliver. Without Clark, the WNBA's most celebrated event lost nearly half its perceived value. That kind of drop isn't just embarrassing, it's catastrophic. You don't just recover from a 48% crash in one of your marquee events. You feel it in sponsorship talks, in TV deals, in public perception. The resellers slashing prices weren't panicking over nothing. They were reacting to the cold truth. Fans didn't want to attend without Caitlin Clark. And that reality struck right at the heart of a league that's been trying to claim it's about everyone, not just one player. Well, the fans just voted, and the results? Brutal. But the big question isn't what happened. It's how it was allowed to happen. Because this wasn't a freak injury. This wasn't a random play. This was a direct consequence of months of unchecked aggression, of lenient officiating, of a league that stood by while its biggest star got beat up game after game. Let's not forget, this isn't the first time the Sun took liberties with Clark. Go back to June 17th. Eye poke, shoved to the ground. An altercation that nearly derailed that game. And what did the league do? Admitted they lost control, then did nothing about it. Yes, you heard that right. The WNBA officially admitted that its referees failed to protect players in that game, and then let the same team come back a month later and take Caitlin Clark out of the All-Star game. That's not negligence. That's a pattern. That's a culture of indifference. And when you stack that on top of the league's desperate desire to present itself as gritty and competitive, you start to see the truth. The physical targeting wasn't accidental. It was silently approved. Because let's talk strategy. Rumors have been circulating for months that the WNBA deliberately tried to downplay Clark's stardom. That league insiders believed the best way to grow was to show it wasn't just the Caitlin Clark show. That if Clark got roughed up a little, it would make the league look tougher, more serious, more competitive. But that theory, it just cost them millions. Because when you let your MVP get battered without consequence, you don't look tough. You look weak. You look desperate. And now, even those closest to Clark are done staying silent. Her coach, Stephanie White, publicly blasted the officials after the June game. Bad officiating is a league-wide issue, she said. Everybody's getting better, except the officials. She warned them during the game. She knew it was coming, and she was right. The tragedy wasn't just Clark getting injured. It was that people saw it coming, and the league still didn't act. Even Clark's own family hit their breaking point. After the injury, her brother, Colin Clark, tweeted a damning message. Make no mistake, this is on the reffing. The tweet was quickly deleted, but that silence said everything. Someone didn't want that message out there. Whether it was an agent, a team rep, or the league itself, pressure was clearly applied. Because the last thing the WNBA wanted was a family of their star turning against them publicly. So where does this all leave us? With a league in crisis, a financial panic that proved what fans had suspected for months. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's value is cut in half. That's not a hot take. That's economic fact. The All-Star game, once a celebration, became a cautionary tale. A $500,000 Commissioner's Cup looks silly when one injury can wipe out millions in ticket revenue and brand goodwill. This isn't about PR anymore. This is about survival. And yet, for all the league scrambling behind the scenes, for all the hurried phone calls, rushed press releases, and hastily restructured all-star marketing plans, it was already too late. The damage had been done. The moment Clark's absence was confirmed, the WNBA's carefully crafted image of shared stardom crumbled in real time. Fans weren't just disappointed, they were outraged. Not at Caitlin Clark, not at Jacy Sheldon, but at the system, at the leadership, at the glaring reality that the WNBA had built its brand on one name while pretending it hadn't. And when that name went down, so did the illusion. This wasn't a controversy contained to sports blogs and Reddit threads. It was everywhere, on ESPN, on national radio, trending on every major social media platform. Pundits who had once championed the league's progress were now asking the same question. How could they let this happen? And the scariest part for league executives? No one had a good answer. The usual deflections, physical game, welcome to the pros, we support all our players, fell flat. Because this wasn't just a welcome to the league moment. This was a breakdown years in the making, ignited by greed and neglect. And as if the ticket crash wasn't bad enough, the ripple effect was just beginning. Sponsors who had lined up to be part of the Caitlin Clark All-Star Show began to reevaluate. Media outlets that had dedicated airtime to covering her three-point contest and captainship had to pivot. The league's entire All-Star weekend, which was supposed to be a crowning moment for its next generation, suddenly became a somber exercise in damage control. The party was still on, but the superstar guest everyone came for, she wasn't coming. That vacuum was more than metaphorical. It was financial, emotional, and symbolic. The league had finally been forced to confront the reality it tried so hard to avoid. The WNBA isn't a collective brand yet. It's Caitlin Clark and everyone else. That's not to discredit the incredible talent across the league, but the numbers don't lie, the votes don't lie, the headlines don't lie, and now, neither do the resale markets. The league gambled on the idea that Clark was just part of the story, but she is the story, and when your story collapses, so does everything built around it. But let's get real. This was never just about basketball. This was about identity, control, and the uncomfortable truth the league didn't want to admit. Protecting Clark would mean prioritizing her. It would mean acknowledging her unique draw, her economic impact, her disproportionate value, and that would upset the carefully balanced narrative the WNBA has spent years building. A narrative of equality, of shared spotlight, of rising tides lifting all boats. But the tide didn't rise this time. It crashed, and it drowned the narrative with it. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a different kind of reckoning was beginning. The very people who had once whispered their concerns were now shouting them from the rooftops. Coaches, agents, family members, league insiders, all saying the same thing. This was preventable. This was warned. This was ignored. And now, it was costing them everything. The chorus grew louder, the tweets more pointed, the interviews less filtered. The league wasn't just dealing with backlash. It was facing a revolt from within its own walls. Stephanie White, already vocal in June, reportedly doubled down behind closed doors. Sources say she brought receipts to the league office, clips, timestamps, missed calls, injury logs. She wasn't asking for change. She was demanding it, and she wasn't alone. Other coaches, emboldened by the fallout, began raising their voices too. What had once been whispers behind the curtain were now open accusations. The officiating was broken, the priorities were warped, and the consequences irreversible. And Caitlin? She said nothing publicly. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke volumes. In a world where stars often fire back with cryptic tweets or pointed interviews, Clark did what she's always done. Let her game, her pain, and now her absence do the talking. But those close to her made their feelings known. Her brother's deleted tweet was just the tip of the iceberg. Friends, teammates, even former coaches began hinting at something deeper. A tension, a frustration, a sense that Caitlin had been left to fight a battle alone, that the league should have fought with her. And let's not forget the fans, because when the league failed to protect Clark, the fans stepped up. They flooded comment sections. They called into radio shows. They organized hashtags. They turned their frustration into momentum. And in doing so, they revealed something powerful. They weren't just here for women's basketball. They were here for Caitlin Clark. And if she wasn't going to be protected, they weren't going to support the product. The consumer revolt was in full effect, and it was louder than any marketing campaign the league could buy. So what now? The WNBA is at a crossroads. They can double down on the spin, try to salvage the All-Star weekend with pressers and PR packages, or they can own the moment. They can acknowledge the mistake, address the officiating, protect their stars, and finally admit what the numbers already prove. Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the league's future. She is the league's future. Anything less is denial, and denial at this point is a luxury the WNBA can no longer afford. Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud, but everyone already knows. The WNBA wanted to prove that it was bigger than one player. But all this moment proved is that they were wrong. Dead wrong. The league needs Clark more than it ever realized. And now, the entire world knows it. The 48% price crash didn't just expose a business problem. It exposed a cultural truth, one the WNBA has to reckon with before it can move forward. The days of hiding behind vague league values and generic branding are over. The mask is slipped, the numbers are in, the damage is done. Now it's about what the league does next. Will they change the officiating? Will they prioritize player safety over narrative control? Will they admit that their strategy backfired in the most public, painful way imaginable? Or will they continue down this path of silent complicity, hoping the next market crash won't hit as hard? Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. The fans are watching. The media is watching. The players are watching. And Caitlin Clark? She's healing. She's recovering. But when she comes back, she won't be the same. Not because she's weaker, but because she's wiser, stronger, and if the league is smart, finally protected. Because this time, they don't just owe her a safer court. They owe her the truth, the spotlight, and the respect she's earned 10 times over. So, to the WNBA leadership, this is your moment, your fork in the road. You can either keep pretending this is business as usual, or you can finally treat it like the reckoning it is. Because the next time the cameras cut to Caitlin Clark, she won't be crying in the corner. She'll be center court. And if you learn nothing else from this 48% disaster, learn this. The game will go on, but without her, your league might not. If you're still with us, drop your take in the comments. Was this a much-needed wake-up call for the WNBA? Or did they just burn the bridge they can't afford to lose? Smash that like button if you believe players like Clark deserve more than empty statements. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in as we keep unraveling the truth behind the headlines. Because we're just getting started. And the WNBA? They've got some explaining to do. And that brings us to the real motive. Because when you strip away the sound bites, the vague league statements, and the half-hearted disciplinary actions, what's left? A league that doesn't act until its bottom line is threatened. They were fine with the hits, the bruises, the media outcry. But when that 48% drop hit, suddenly they started listening. The WNBA's motive isn't protecting players, it's protecting profits. And the price of ignoring that reality just hit them where it hurts the most. So now the WNBA stands at a crossroads. Do they continue down this path, hoping Clark heals up and the storm passes? Or do they finally accept what everyone else already knows? That the league doesn't just benefit from Clark, it depends on her. Because if they choose wrong again, it won't be just a price crash, it'll be a credibility collapse. And this time, no spin will save them. Let us know in the comments. Was this 48% crash a wake-up call or a death knell for the WNBA? And do you think the league can bounce back without real accountability? Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. Because the fallout from this isn't over. Not by a long shot.